Welcome back, guys. This is the last page of lesson 10.2 in your Go Math textbook on page 388. And this last page is the page that always gives us the most trouble because we really have to think outside the box, or we have to use those higher order thinking skills that we have. So, number 9, well, our first instructions tell us to use the Venn diagram right here. We see a Venn diagram with 3 circles for answering questions 9 through 10. So we're going to use this Venn diagram to answer these 2 questions. Number 9 asks, which triangles do not have an obtuse angle? Okay, so we know that an obtuse triangle has an obtuse angle in it. And so all of these are obtuse triangles, which means that these triangles, these acute triangles, and these right angles do not have obtuse angles in them. So our answer would be triangle DEF, triangle SPN, triangle ABC, and triangle GHP. And our explanation would be that right and acute triangles cannot have obtuse angles. Okay? Number 10. How many triangles have at least 2 acute triangles? Okay, at least 2 acute triangles. So we know that these 2 definitely have acute angles in them because they are acute triangles, which means they have 3 acute angles in each one. So that's 2 of them. But how many of these others have at least 2 acute triangles? So we have 1, 2. These obtuse triangles are definitely going to have 2 acute angles with them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that gives us that. And right triangles are going to have acute angles in them as well, because if they had an obtuse angle anywhere in them, they would not be considered right triangles. They would be considered obtuse triangles. So every single one of these are going to have at least 2 acute triangles. So the answer is 7. And our explanation is an acute triangle has 3 acute angles. An obtuse triangle has 1 obtuse and 2 acute angles. And a right triangle has 1 right angle and 2 acute angles. I know that is a long explanation, but when you start taking those state tests next year and it asks you to explain your answer, these are the kinds of answers that they're going to be looking for. These are the kind of explanations they're going to be looking for. So that is why it's important that we go over these and we not just skip over them because they seem kind of hard. So how many triangles have at least 2 acute angles? It would be all of these. So we would just count them up, and there are 7. And then our explanation would be what we put here. That an acute triangle has 3 acute angles. An obtuse triangle has 1 obtuse and 2 acute angles, and a right triangle has 1 right angle and 2 acute angles. Number 11, use square MNPQ, shown at the right. Draw a line segment from point M to point P. And the way that we do that is we're going to make just as straight as we can a line that connects M and P. Next, name and classify the triangles formed by the line segment. Okay, so in a square, we have 2 perpendicular lines, okay? This one is a straight line going vertical, and this is a straight line going horizontal. So this creates a right triangle right here. So a square has 4 right angles in it, okay? So here, if we were just talking about the whole triangle, but since we've divided it in half, now we have a right angle right here, and we also have a right angle right here. This one, angle M, is going to be acute, and angle P is going to be acute because it's not one straight vertical line bumped up against one straight horizontal line bumped up against a straight vertical line. Hope that makes sense. Sorry about that. So we are going to name the 2 angles. Angle MNP and, triangle MNP and triangle MPQ are both right triangles. They each have a right angle because what I told you earlier, the square has 4 right angles. Okay, so if this line were not here and we were just looking at the square, there would be a right angle here, 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 and here, okay? Right math, describe. Describe how figures A and B, right over here, shown at the right, are alike and how they are different. Identify the figures in as many ways as possible. Okay, so figure A, we see that this is a perfectly straight vertical line meeting a perfectly straight horizontal line, and so this is a right angle, okay? So we can go ahead and write figure A is a right angle. Now let's look at figure B. All of these angles in figure B are smaller than right angles. So they are acute angles, which means that figure B is an acute angle, triangle. Let me go back and erase this. Now I left out a word. I said the wrong thing here. This is triangle. Sorry about that, guys. You guys know I'm bad about that in class too. So, one of the ways that we can talk about how they are alike and different, and it says identify the figures in as many ways as possible. Well, this is one way, okay? This is one of the ways that we have told that they are different. Figure A is a right triangle and figure B is an acute triangle. Figure A has two equal sides, right here and right here. And you can see this because it's on graph paper, okay? So it takes up 2 spaces here and 2 spaces here. So figure A has 2 equal sides. It has 2 acute angles. And 1 right angle. Figure B has 3 equal sides and 3 equal angles. And we can tell this because it's drawn on graph paper. We can see that this takes up 2 blocks on our grid. This is connecting 2 boxes and this as well. So these are all exactly the same size, okay, on the sides. They would be equal. And then we could also say both figures are triangles. Doesn't leave us enough room to do that, but we'll do it anyway. Both figures are triangles. And both have acute angles. So if you wanted to give a perfect answer, that would be what that looks like. So in comparing those 2 figures, and you will do some more of that in 5th grade, and you will do some of that on state testing. When you come back, you'll start seeing that stuff on your Scantron test and that kind of thing next year. Number 13 is test prep. How many acute angles are in an obtuse triangle? A0, B1, C2, or D3? Okay, so I'm going to think about this in this way. I'm going to think an obtuse triangle has 1 obtuse angle, meaning that the other 2 angles have to be acute angles. And we've talked about that. If you go back up into question number 10, we talked about that. So you could go back to number 10 and check your answer. But 2 acute angles are in an obtuse angle. Good job, guys. See you in the next lesson.